you all a happy and prosperous New Year. And students, from this class onwards, I am going to handle you with revision, and I am not going to take anything new for next few classes. I will be handling with the portions we have taken already. Okay? So, for the next few classes, you will have a revision of the portions still taken. Alright? Are you all ready? Okay. First, let's see what did we see or what did we learn in the lesson The Little Prince Visits the King. The Little Prince Visits the King. What did we learn? Do you remember? Very good. Here, a little prince he decides to visit all his neighboring asteroids. Okay. So, on his way, he saw a king whose dress covered his entire planet, and this little prince is standing in front of this king. As he is very tired, this little prince started to yawn. And this king was shocked. Why? Till now, the king is living all alone in that planet, in that asteroid, and now he saw a subject. Usually, kings call his people, all others, as subject. So, this king also called or referred this little prince as a subject. Okay. So, this little prince started to yawn. This king was shocked to see, and he's saying that in front of a king, you are yawning. This is not the right manners. This is not the right etiquette. Okay, in front of a king, you are yawning. And also, this king is asking this little prince to yawn again, because till now he is living all alone in that planet. He haven't seen anybody yawn. So this king asked him to repeat the same. But this little prince refused to yawn again. If I ask you to yawn, can you? No, it will come automatically. So this little prince refused to do that. So the king is saying, oh, you are not obeying my order. If I ask my general to change himself or to transform himself into a seabird or a butterfly or anything else, they will change. If they are not obeying my rules or my order, which means it is not their mistake, it is my mistake. Now you are not yawning. This is not your mistake. This is my mistake. And their conversation is going on. This little prince is so tired and he wants to sit somewhere. So he is requesting to the king, shall I sit somewhere? And the king allowed him, and he sat. They were conversing. This little prince is asking, okay, you are here, but over what are you ruling? And the king said, over everything. All these planets, all these stars are under my control. So this little prince says, okay, all these are under your control. Do they obey you? This king said, yes, obviously. They will obey me because all my orders are reasonable or logical. I will not say any orders like a stupid person or idiotic person. All my orders are reasonable. All are logically correct. I will not say any stars to dance or any stars to sing. I will say what should and what should not. So all my orders are logical and reasonable. That's why all these planets will obey me. And this little prince asks or requests to the king that I want to see the sunset. I want to see the sunset. So the king agreed. Okay, you can see the sunset by 7:30. Till that you should wait, because I cannot say I cannot order the sun to set just now. The next minute I cannot say, because all my orders are reasonable and you should wait till the time comes. And later, this little prince feels so bored and he decides to leave this planet. But this king refused and he don't want this little prince to leave him as he is living all alone till. So now he think that okay, I got a company. So we both can stay here or live in this planet. Okay, but this little prince wants to move or wants to leave this planet because he at first decides I should visit all the asteroids, all the neighboring asteroids. Okay, but this king is not allowing him to go, and this king said, I'll make you as the minister of justice. Please be with me. And this little prince is asking, okay, I'm the minister of justice, that's fine. I should judge whom? Whom should I judge? This king said, you judge yourself. So the little prince replied that if I want to judge myself, why should I stay here? I can judge myself wherever I am. There is no compulsion for me to stay here to judge myself. So the king said, okay, you please judge a rat. Here we have an old rat. You please judge that old rat and condemn him to death. This little prince again refused to obey the king's rule, king's order. Okay, this little prince is saying that I am not the right person to judge others. I don't have any rights to judge others. Most of the time we judge others. We try to judge others. And this little prince is saying, I don't have the capacity or I am unable to judge others. I will not judge that or I will not condemn that rat to death. I will not do that. And he said, and he bid farewell to the king and he left that asteroid. This is what we have seen in the lesson. The little prince visits the king. Is that clear? Now let's see the poem, The Children's Hour. This is written by Henry Longfellow. This is a poem which deals with the love of a father on his daughters. So here the author, the poet is conveying or he is explaining his love, how much he loves his daughters. He has 3 daughters, and what is the name of those 3 daughters? Allegra, Alice, Allegra and Edith. Alice, Allegra and Edith. So these 3 daughters are loving their father so much, and in the same way the father, the poet, also loves his daughters so much. Okay, so while this poet is reading a book in his chamber in a twilight time, and the time he is first describing the time, how beautiful that time is. It is not the night time, it is not the afternoon, it is not evening, it is twilight time. The time between night and evening at about 6:30 here. Okay, so this is the suitable time for him to spend with his daughters. He usually play with his daughters at this time. So his daughters are planning to surprise him. Okay, so they are hiding behind something, behind his chairs, and they are whispering something among themselves, and they are planning to surprise their father. And they rushed towards him and they started to hug him, they started to kiss him. Okay, so these 3 daughters are kissing their father. And now he remembers the Bishop of Benjin. So this Bishop of Benjin was killed by a group of mice. So all these mice bite him and he died. Similarly, like these mice which are biting the bishop, in the same way these 3 daughters are kissing their father, and he is comparing his heart with a dungeon. Dungeon means it's like a prison. will be there in the prison, that is his heart. I love my daughter so much. And he also says that now I am getting old. And he is saying that though it's time for me to sleep, which means it's time for me to leave this world. I am going to die very soon. But do remember that I love you all so much till my death. So you all will be safe in my heart. This is what he conveys here. Okay, here this poem, the children's art, is completely about the love of a father towards his three daughters. Alright students? And one more poem we learned just before few weeks. What is that? The flower school. So in the flower school, the poet is comparing the school going children with flowers. These flowers are settled in the forest and they are going to a school which is under the ground, and their home is at sky. Their mothers are waiting for these kids, for these flowers, and the school which they are going is very strict. So their master, whenever these children leave the classroom before the bell rings, what the master will do? The master will punish them and ask them to stand in a corner of the classroom. So whenever the rain comes, these flowers feel so happy, so excited, and they started to enjoy. They danced, they sang, and they enjoyed the monsoon season. Here the poet Rabindranath Tagore is considering himself as a little boy who is explaining about all these flowers to his mother. So Rabindranath Tagore is a little boy who is narrating the enjoyment or the joyful happiness of the flowers to his mother. This is what we saw in the poem The Flower School. Now let's see another interesting lesson we studied, that is the three questions. Here we saw that once there lived a king. This king eagerly wants to know answers for three questions. And what are the three questions? What is the right time to begin everything? What is the right time for me to start something, start any action? And what is the right, who is the right person? First is what is the right time to begin, time to start. And next is who is the right person? Whom should I listen or whom should I avoid? Next is what is the most important thing for me to, what is the most important work? What is the most important duty for me to do as a king? Okay, so these are the three questions for which the king is eagerly inquiring for the answers. So he asked the wise men, and whoever answers to these three questions properly, they will be rewarded with gold, diamond, pearl, everything. Okay, so all the wise men of all the kingdoms came to his palace, and they are giving their own opinions, their own answers. But all these answers were not satisfying the king. Some of them said the most important person is magician, priest, doctor, and the most important work is in the war battlefield. And so they are suggesting or they are telling their own opinions, their own answers. But all these answers are not satisfying the king. And finally the king decides to meet a hermit. And in the hut, the hermit is busy in digging the ground. And this hermit looks so weak and feeble. And the king decides to help this poor little hermit. And he is digging the ground. And also he is asking these questions. I came here to know answers for three questions so that I can rule my kingdom in a better way. Okay, so he is asking these three questions repeatedly, "That's why I came to meet you." But this hermit is not replying anything. He did not respond to this king. He did not utter, he did not say any answers for these questions. And now they are alternatively, they both are digging the ground. Meanwhile, a wounded man who had a stab on his stomach, who rushed towards him, and this king is cleaning those wounds and bandaged the wounds. And the next day morning, what happened? This wounded man informed to the king that, "I was your enemy, but you saved my life. You killed my brother, that's why I came here to kill you, but you saved my life." And now they both became friends. Finally, the king decides to leave the hermit's hut. But again, he is repeating the question to the hermit that, "I am about to leave, but you are still now, you are not replying." So this hermit replied now that, "Already you got the answers." "What do you mean? Already I got the answers?" "Yes, you got the answers already." "How?" Now the hermit is explaining. "At first, when you saw me as a weak and feeble person, you voluntarily came to me and you helped me. And that is the most important time to begin. That is, at that moment, at that present time, the king decides to help that hermit. So that present time is very important. Yesterday got over. Future or tomorrow, it will come tomorrow. But the time we have in our hands is the present time. And we should do right thing at the right time for the right person. Okay. So the important person at that moment is that hermit, because he was very weak and feeble. So he helped that hermit. Next, when the wounded person came there, the injured person came there, the king immediately, without any hesitation, the king helped that wounded man. And so, his life was saved. On the other hand, the two enemies become friends. So, the present time is very important. The person who is in front of us at this moment is very important. This is what the message conveyed in this lesson, the 3 questions. Students, have you all understood? Okay. Students, now let's see another lesson, the Great Smog of 1952. It talks more about air pollution, and it happened on December 5th, 1952 in London. Where? In London. On December 5th, 1952, the entire Londoners were shocked to see the smoky air. At first, the climate was so chill and people thought that it is just fog. But later on, what happened? They could not see each other because this fog plus smoke from industries, smoke from automobiles fills the air, and completely it looks very dark. It mainly affects the major places in London like Big Ben, St. Paul's Cathedral and London Bridge. Big Ben, St. Paul's Cathedral and London Bridge, and so many other cities. The bus drivers, the car drivers, they are unable to move their vehicles. So these conductors are guiding the drivers to move their vehicles. So all these vehicles are settled or stopped there on the streets, and people who are suffering with asthma or any respiratory problems, they shifted their home and they settled in their neighbor's home, or they stayed in their neighbors or neighboring streets, because everywhere the air is filled with dirt, smoke. So this fog and this smoke from industries and vehicles, they combine together and form the smog. And finally, more than 4,000 people died because of this smog. At first, the London government did not take any initiative or any steps, but later on they announced, the government passed or the parliament passed some acts like Clean Air Act of 1956, and based on this act the authorities, they will check the condition or the quality of the air in main areas, main London cities. This is what there in the Great Smog of 1952. Students, what did we study in the lesson An Uncomfortable Bed? Here, the narrator feels so afraid of his friends because they are always cooning him, or they are always making the narrator as a foolish person by their practical jokes. So because of that fear, he hid himself in his bedroom and he checked everywhere. He did not sleep even, but he forgot to close the door and he slept on the floor. Morning, what happened? When the valet enters into his room, he slipped and he falls down on the narrator. The hot tea and the morning breakfast, everything spilled on the narrator as well as on his bed. And finally, he himself made him as a foolish person, and that was the joke of that day. All his friends and all his servants laughed at him. Am I right? This is what we saw in the lesson An Uncomfortable Bed. Students, I hope you all have understood our today's class. See you all in the next class, students. Until, take care. Thank you.